Fellas, is it gay to hang up pictures of other men all over your house and gym as inspiration for your ideal physique? Is it gay to do donkey calf raises with another man on your back? And is it gay to take to the stage to show off your oiled and tanned body, the culmination of years of hard work and centuries of consensus on the peak male form?
Bodybuilding's gay. I'm just gonna say it. Bodybuilding's gay.
Well, there you have it. Case closed. I mean, I do think that the Trend Twins or Sam Sulek might have something different to say about it, but it sounds like the most secure man in the world has it figured out for you. And why bother asking questions for yourself when you can just listen to this beacon of masculinity?
I know women. They are absolutely feeble. Even with a knife, they're useless. They ain't ready for the big man slap. I got a big hand. I'll bust their jaw with the bottom of my hand, and the top of their head will feel the sting from the fingers, like the whole boom.
It's funny, Andrew. You seem to know a lot about black, but nothing about white.
But what if it's not so black and white? What if there are shades of gray? What if the truth lies somewhere in the nuance and history and beautiful truths about the human condition? You're probably wondering why we're talking about nudity. Just bear with me, okay? I know, I promise, it'll pay off. Male nudity is an ancient tradition that dates all the way back to, well, the creation of man. For as long as man has existed, he's been nude, and nude in the company of other men. This may come as a shock to some, but in the time of Homo erectus, the only conceivable reason to cover one's genitals would be to prevent a saber-toothed tiger from taking a bite out of your penis. Nudity in sport has a rich tradition in ancient Greece. The first Olympic athletes in 776 BCE wore only loincloths to compete in, and by 500 BCE, full nudity was the norm. These men competed in boxing, chariot racing, long jump, javelin, discus, MMA sprinting, and wrestling, all while fully nude. Women were not allowed to attend these ancient Olympic Games. This was a celebration of the male form by and for men only. They considered athletic nudity to be a show of civility. And what could be more civil than beating another man's face in while you gently brush nipples? It's both tender and barbaric, your perfect physique on full display, while at the same time being fully exposed. This epic display of masculinity continued until 393 AD when the Olympic Games were abolished. And just why the hell did they do that? Well, first, you have to understand that in 146 BC, Rome conquered Greece. Then, in 383 AD, Theodosius I became emperor. Early in his reign, he became so ill that he almost died. During this time, he was baptized and converted to Christianity. After his recovery, he decided his love for God, and not to mention Jesus, needed to be shared with his people. So, he made Orthodox Christianity the official religion of Rome and placed his power under the church, officially combining church and state. Finally, a man who's not afraid to ask the question, what if my beliefs are the only ones that matter? He closed pagan temples and forbade pagan worship, like, for example, a certain sporting event held in the honor of Zeus. In Christianity, nudity is viewed like this. In the beginning, there was Adam and Eve, and they were nude. In the Garden of Eden, there was really only one rule. Don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But one day the devil comes to Eve in the form of a snake, and he's all, why should God just get to stomp around like a giant while the rest of us try not to get smushed under his big feet? You're just as cute as God, right? You're just as smart as God. Adam totally likes you just as much as he likes God. And when did it become okay for one person to be the boss of everybody? Because that's not what the garden's about. We should all just totally eat the fruit. Which she totally did, and she totally got Adam to do too. But then, tragedy strikes. Suddenly they became aware of their nakedness, and they were shamed. They hid from God because they were embarrassed of being naked, and God's all wait, who told you were naked? And anyway, he curses mankind and creates all future strife between men and women and makes childbirth painful, yada yada. Through this lens, it's interesting to note that nudity is actually seen as a sign of innocence and virtue. The nudity itself is not the sin, their awareness of their nudity and their subsequent shame are the sin. They didn't become shamed as a punishment from God, they became shamed as a result of putting their faith in the devil. In practice, modern-day Christianity has kind of reversed this narrative such that the act of nudity or being exposed is immoral, but in the story of creation, nudity is revered as sacred. So, Theodosius died in 395 AD, but the damage was already done. Christianity was king and nude sports were a civilian casualty. So why do I bring this up? I bring this up because this is an example of the way that Christian values shape what is considered moral and what is considered appropriate male behavior. I bring this up because if we did this now, it would absolutely be considered gay. You're telling me a bunch of dudes are wrestling naked for an audience of only men? Sounds pretty gay to me. Unless, of course, we're talking Greek life. Unless, of course, we're talking frat guys, because if we're talking frat guys, then this makes total sense. Notice the razor-thin edge between something being considered gay and something being considered hyper-masculine. It all exists within the context of pleasure, femininity, and social status. So come along as we explore the age-old question, is bodybuilding gay? This brings us to bodybuilding. Okay, it doesn't exactly bring us to bodybuilding. It brings us to this weird liminal space where loving and appreciating the male form is one of the most manly things you can do, but the way you go about it informs whether it's masculine and therefore socially acceptable, or feminine and therefore gay.
Ugh. And the last thing you want to be is gay. Yeah.
When Theodosius made Christianity the official religion of Rome, he also made homosexuality illegal. His decree stated,
all persons who have the shameful custom of condemning a man's body, acting the part of a woman's to the sufferance of alien sex, for they appear not to be different from women, shall expiate a crime of this kind in avenging flames in the sight of the people.
The criminal repercussions only befall the man who is the receiver of the sexual act here, because the true sin, as he clearly states that they appear not to be different from women, is femininity. In America, up until about the 1920s, society was segregated along gender lines. And other lines, of course, but we're focusing on gender right now. The social scene consisted entirely of men. Women rarely left the house, and when they did, they surrounded themselves with mostly other women. Bars and social clubs were places where men could get away from all the nonsensical ramblings of the woman they kept shackled to the stove. The problem with only allowing women to spend time with other women is that they might start talking to each other. And there ain't nothing worse than chicks talking to each other. But that's exactly what they did. Not only that, they also began organizing. By 1920, women had finally won the right to vote. At the same time, they began entering the workforce and existing more freely in public spaces. This forced men to start asking themselves some pretty challenging questions like, what exactly do I even do? If I could do all the same stuff as women, then what exactly makes me better than them? In Gay New York, Chauncey argues that this middle-class male insecurity regarding the integration of women into the public sphere and the loss of job-related masculinity due to more desk jobs and less blue-collar work resulted in a new policing of appropriate male behavior. Distressed and more than a little hysterical, men came up with two bulletproof ways to differentiate themselves from women. Number one, enforcing a rigid adherence to opposite-sex attraction because being attracted to men is feminine. And number two, the endless pursuit of the perfect physique, aka strength training and bodybuilding. Most strongman scholars agree that bodybuilding begins with Eugene Sandow in the late 1800s. He began his career as a circus athlete, traveling around the world, performing flashy feats of strength, and reaching mainstream success due to his stunning body and winning showmanship. This is the first time that someone gains real notoriety, not just for their strength, but for their physique and aesthetic. He's like a pug competing in Westminster's agility category. Like, sure, he can race down a ramp with the best of them, but he's really more of a best in show non-sporting category type pup. He advertised himself as the strongest man in the world, but it wasn't really about being the strongest. It was about looking fantastic and knowing how to put on a show. He created an ideal that men could strive for, and a surefire way to prove that they were definitely not women. Sure, he was defeated in 1902 by Katie Sanduino, who easily lifted a 300-pound weight over her head when he couldn't even lift it past his shoulders, but it's not about that. It's about doing things that women can't do. Or wait, Unfortunately, bodybuilding did not benefit from the same widespread acceptance as strength training. In the book Buying Gay by David Johnson, he describes Bob Hoffman, the father of American weightlifting, resisting the new interest in bodybuilding and Mr. America contests, associating these with feminine narcissism, and weightlifters called the artistic poses favored by bodybuilders sissy stuff. Again, we see the association with the feminine as being wrong, weak, and gay, which is of course bad. At the same time, the sport of bodybuilding is being built on the backs of a gay fanbase. Johnson argues that the proliferation of bodybuilding competitions, both local and national, depended on a large gay fanbase. He says that Bob Miser, a gay photographer who frequented Muscle Beach in Los Angeles, says it was an open secret that gay men made up a large portion of the audience at Mr. America, Mr. California, and the myriad other bodybuilding competitions. Supposedly, most of the photographers in the space were gay men and would run ads in the back of Strength and Health magazine, the flagship men's strength magazine, offering undraped photos of young athletes. These photographers would go on to start their own magazines that became known as physique magazines. Physique magazines were similar to bodybuilding and strength magazines with one key difference. They were made specifically for gay men. Sure, all of these magazines existed with the male gaze in mind, but these new physique magazines focused on showcasing men's bodies in a new light. Instead of sweaty, geared-up meatheads flexing as hard as humanly possible on the lat pull-down machine, they highlighted a slimmer body composition, with the subjects smiling and demonstrating a camaraderie and playfulness between them. Mainstream bodybuilding felt that the popularity of these publications was cutting into their margins, so they launched a smear campaign claiming that these magazines were immoral and targeted at children. The media ran with this narrative, with Sports Illustrated claiming that a sport that had begun as a way to get yourself a girl had become a way to get something quite the opposite. Although we know that bodybuilding was never about getting yourself a girl, it was actually quite the opposite. Focused on proving your masculinity to mostly other men in an effort to assure yourself and others that your role in society was still valuable, and more importantly, unattainable by women. The New York Times wrote that the so-called bodybuilding publications were peddling outright homosexual pornography in text and illustration. Their attempts to discredit and eradicate physique magazines spun out of control and completely backfired. The retribution against their own fan base only blurred the lines further. Now, bodybuilding was indistinguishable from its sinfully gay counterpart. Even family physicians were known to warn teenage boys away from lifting weights due to the likelihood of encountering homosexuals. The manuscript for Pumping Iron, The Art and Sport of Bodybuilding, the book that preceded the movie, is said to have been rejected many times before it was accepted, on the premise that it was, as best stated by the New York Times, F-slur bait. Even the editor-in-chief of Doubleday explained that no one in America will buy a book of pictures of these half-unclothed men of dubious sexual pursuits. But honestly, guys, have you seen Pumping Iron? After the initial screening of the film to the bodybuilders that appeared in it, one was said to have approached the director saying, "George, you fucked us." Another said, "This is the worst piece of shit we've ever seen." After the commercial success of the movie, they quickly recalibrated and enjoyed their newfound popularity. But as I watched the movie, I was eagerly looking out for what they could have meant. The two main themes that stuck out to me are the cruel way in which they attempt to psychologically manipulate their competition.
Surely should have it in a month for him. He's not even in shape yet. I mean, gee, he didn't get the timing right, I'm telling you. A month from now would have been perfect for you. But then I get bigger too again, so, you know.
And the intense homoerotic undertone of the film.
It's as satisfying to me as coming is, you know, as having sex with a woman and coming. So can you believe how much I am in heaven?
Long shots of heavy breathing and concerted effort in the gym. Naked shower scenes where they flex their wriggling biceps for each other. Of course, I do wonder if the filmmaker himself, George Butler, was gay. A 2003 New York Times article written about him before he passed describes entering his foyer as being accosted by posters and photographs of male bodybuilders wearing next to nothing except gargantuan muscles and an aura of testosterone. He was particularly fascinated with Arnold and had a personal collection of over 7,500 stills of the legend. Being involved in the bodybuilding space before its catapult into the spotlight is certainly not an indication of anyone's sexuality, but it is hard to imagine while watching Pumping Iron that the filmmaker was not at least somewhat aware of the film's sensual tone. After Arnold's meteoric and unprecedented rise to stardom, and with films like Rambo and The Terminator bringing a new ideal of masculinity to the forefront, we see another surge in the popularity of bodybuilding. A study done by Alan Klein in 1989 called Managing Deviance, Hustling, Homophobia, and the Bodybuilding Subculture zooms in on bodybuilding in SoCal in the late 80s. He claims that part of their ability to form a successful collective identity comes from being considered marginal or deviant by larger society. He suggests that bodybuilders' veneer of arrogance is actually disguised insecurity rooted in popular suspicions held about bodybuilders. Whether this be insecurity about their size or their sexuality, bodybuilding can serve as a tool to build ego and self-esteem, simultaneously requiring massive amounts of admiration and acknowledgement that can never truly be satisfied. It's hard to imagine that level of ego and insecurity. I mean, forcing yourself into the public eye for hundreds or thousands of people to look at you as a center of attention. I mean, what could happen to you to require that level of ego and admiration? In order for the community to feel comfortable taking part in these bodybuilding behaviors, like hustling, wearing very short posing trunks, removal of body hair, and unusual posing, they found it necessary to adopt an attitude of homophobia in response to the jokes and remarks that were made about them participating in these kinds of behaviors. Unfortunately, instead of homophobia easing their insecurities about participating in these seemingly effeminate practices, it only increases their anxiety about being perceived as homosexual. I said the word hustling. You're probably wondering what that is. In this context, hustling means being gay for pay. Well, these bodybuilders don't really see themselves as being gay at all. It's actually very important to them to distinguish themselves as heterosexual and only participating in these acts with gay men exclusively for monetary gain. Hustling can include a wide range of activities, from popping out of a cake nude at gay parties, to nude photography or pornography, to explicit sex with another man. At the time of publishing this study in 1989, although hustling is widely condemned, they estimate that between 50 to 80% of non-professional bodybuilders working out at Olympic Gym, which I think is their code for Gold's Gym, participate in hustling. Economically, hustling works because in order to be a professional bodybuilder, it's almost impossible to hold down a normal job. Many of these athletes spend up to 8 hours a day in the gym, and they just don't want to deal with trying to fit their workouts in with their job. They want their job to be the working out. Psychologically, it works because a lot of their unmet needs for admiration and validation can be satisfied through being worshipped by another man. Breaking into the mainstream is incredibly cutthroat, but they could become a minor celebrity just by doing a little side hustle. Sure, they may be attracted to women, but at the end of the day, women are only women. And what could be more validating than being acknowledged by another man? Simultaneously, they see gay men as predatory and the source of their corruption, which exacerbates their homophobia even further. The isolation, loneliness, and compartmentalization necessary to maintain these two opposing lifestyles could be devastating. This internalized homophobia often drove hustlers to become born-again Christians or even make attempts on their lives. If you were discovered participating in hustling, you would be ostracized from your community and cut off from exposure in magazines, which was vital to up-and-comers. Kai Greene is a famous example of an elite bodybuilder who has been ridiculed and harassed for his involvement in hustling. He's most known for placing second in Mr. Olympia, which is basically the Super Bowl of bodybuilding, in 2012, 2013, and 2014, and many people speculate that he never won due to his involvement in this scandal. When erotic photos and videos made early in his career began circulating publicly, bodybuilding fans became obsessed with the question of his sexuality. If you search why he never won Mr. Olympia, or really any questions regarding his physique or his career, you'll find posts littered with jokes and accusations about his sexuality. At this point, it's almost impossible to find discussions about his career that aren't tainted by the scandal. He has never confirmed or denied the speculation. He simply emphasizes that his personal life will remain personal and expresses his frustration with the prying questions that attempt to detract from his success. For many, his legacy is tainted by this question of his sexual preferences. But this idea that a heterosexual man participating in homosexual activities makes him unquestionably gay is actually a relatively new idea. Up until around the 1940s, according to Chauncey, straight men could have sex with gay men and still maintain their status as heterosexual as long as they identified as being straight, didn't behave effeminately, and were not the ones being penetrated. It was common practice for military men, sailors, and working class men to allow gay men to make passes at them. They didn't identify as homosexual. Their sexual desires simply existed within a spectrum of normal behavior. So, is bodybuilding gay? I mean, yeah, obviously. In the sense that it's something that gay men have historically enjoyed and participated in. It was built by and for gay men, with the help of straight men, in an incredible act of allyship. Now, in the sense of the word gay, parentheses derogatory, or more specifically meaning, is bodybuilding feminine, the answer is also a resounding yes. Since the very first bodybuilder, Eugene Sandow, went toe-to-toe with Katie Sanduina and lost, women have been involved in the sport. Sure, they might not be as popular, sure, people might hate to see them doing it, but that has never stopped women before. The truth is, you can't get away from us. There is no activity that exists to prove your masculinity and therefore heterosexuality that women cannot participate in. Bodybuilding gained popularity as an attempt for men to distinguish themselves from women, to prove their value and their worth and their physical superiority. This is a really unstable premise, this idea that if only you were big enough or strong enough, then you might actually be worth something. As if your physicality is any indicator of the content of your character or the net good that you contribute to society. It is also built on a foundation of misogyny, which is symptomatic of the larger problem that men face. The fear of somehow being perceived as a woman. I am not saying that I think all bodybuilders are misogynists at all, What I am saying is that even these male spaces that are the peak, the epitome of masculinity, are threatened by this idea of being gay or acting femininely. Because really, if it's feminine, then what's the point? But maybe we need to embrace the fact that most, if not all, men like doing stuff that's a little bit gay. Women are given carte blanche to participate in a variety of activities that are considered gay, including going into a dressing room together, sharing a bed at a sleepover, or wearing men's clothing. Now, whether or not this is because women's queerness is treated as a joke is a question for another day. But these same small acts of love and friendship and personal expression are labeled as gay when men participate in them. If we want to solve the male loneliness epidemic, then we need to address the demonization of normal human expression as being gay and therefore wrong or bad. Because newsflash, guys, everybody's a little bit gay. The Greeks had it all figured out. Masculinity is about balance. To prove that you were the strongest, you had to be vulnerable. You had to be willing to expose yourself, to risk something in order to achieve true greatness. This is a lost art. Modern-day homophobia and misogyny are a result of an unwillingness to be vulnerable. True masculinity is to proudly expose every part of yourself, to be unapologetically secure in your identity and unafraid to be influenced by or take inspiration from people as lowly as women or the gays. Jonah Lehrer says it best, and Proust was a neuroscientist. The mind is never beyond redemption, for no environment can extinguish neurogenesis. As long as we are alive, important parts of the brain are dividing. The brain is not marble, it is clay, and our clay never hardens.